Sa eksklusibong video na ito na nakuha ng News 5, makikita ang leader ng Abu Sayyaf at sinasabing emir ng ISIS sa Southeast Asia na si Istilon Hapilon na pinangungunahan ng pagdarasal ng kanilang grupo. Kasama ni Hapilon sa video ang mga sub-leader ng kanilang grupo gaya ng Maute brothers sa sina Omar at Abdullah at ilang Malaysian at Indonesian. Sa salitang Arabic at tausug na nalangin ng grupo kay Allah na iligtas sila sa bakbakan. Maya-maya, nagsalita na si Hapilon.
Pujian bilang mungkin untuk kita ambil iktibar, untuk kita ambil contoh seperti yang beliau sebutkan sekali kalau Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala Laumina pamilya jadi muslungin papahay ikuan ng kurasi ng BFF.
Dagdag ni Hapilon, matagal na raw niyang pinapangarap na maisakatuparan ang kanilang mga plano.
Belum nagtakay ng patuloy. Balay upat kami nagtindog. Dijay pa. Dalam makautag ng kauntawan inang temang ulang siya ng Subhanahu wa Ta'ala.
Hinimok din ni Hapilon ang mga kasama na huwag pang hinaan ng loob dahil suportado raw sila ng pinuno ng ISIS na si Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala alhamdulillah puasa dia tu kasahid niya masih kita nyo wala ng Quran yung Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala ya baita Allah Ta'ala jahidu ila kajihadi
Bago maghiwa-hiwalay, nagdasal muli ang grupo at sinambit ang mga pangalan ng kanilang mga kinikilalang propeta para gabayan sila ng mga ito.
عندنا minallahi fihi burhan.
Sa mga sumunod na video, makikita na gumagawa na ng mga improvised explosive device ang ilang miyembro ng grupo. Habang ang ilan naman, nag-eehersisyo para mapalakas ang pangangatawan. Ang grupo naman na ito pinag-aaralang mabuti ang bawat parte ng iba't ibang uri ng matataas na kalibre ng baril. Hindi malinaw kung kailan kinuhanan ng video pero makikita dito sa kanyang data files na May 14, 2017 ito kinuhanan. Mga 2 linggo na lamang iyan bago gawin ng grupo yung kanilang tinatawag na grand plan na atakihin ng Marawi. Pero 3 araw bago ito mangyari, ni-raid ng mga sundalong isa sa mga safe house ni Hapilon kung saan kasamang na-recover ang video na ito ng pagpaplano ng grupo. 23 araw na pero patuloy pa rin ang bakbakan dito sa Marawi. Bagamat patuloy na nababawi ng tropa ang mga importanteng posisyon ng mga terorista, hindi pa rin malinaw kung kailan matatapos ang krisis. Kanina, dumating pa sa Marawi ang mga karagdagang Simba tanks ng Army para mag-reinforce sa mga tropang nasa loob. Samantala, kanina ay 3 lalaki ang nagpakilalang mag-aama ang lumapit sa mga otoridad. Tumakas daw sila galing sa barangay Mongkado, Kadingilan dahil sa tindi ng bakbakan. Pero duda ang mga polis. Paano ba naman kasi bago raw tumakas sa mga ito, nagawa pang magpagupit ng buhok ng isa sa kanila na nagpakilalang si Sara Udin. Idagdag pa dyan ang suot itong bracelet na malaki raw ang pagkakahawig sa mga suot ng mga teroristang napapatay sa loob. Pero paliwanag dito, rosaryo raw ito ng mga Muslim na ginagamit nila tuwing Ramadan. Ang kapatid naman itong ipinakilalang si Omar, kapansin-pansin na malaki ang pagkakahawig sa isa sa mga nasa wanted list ng mga otoridad na si Randolph Legarda alias Muhammad Anzar o Abu Hana. Samantala, mananatili muna ang 3 sa kustodiya ng PNP para nga sa questioning.
21 يوما على اقتحام مقاتلي الدولة الإسلامية لمدينة ماراوي الفلبينية وما زالت المعارك على أوج من عملية استعادة المدينة وخسر ما لا يقل عن 200 جندي منذ بدء المعركة في مراوي نظرا لطول خط المواجهة بين الجانبين. شبان منخرطون في حرب شوارع مباشرة.
Well, Pia, the latest to be held for questioning are 3 men, an elderly man and his 2 adult sons who emerged from the battle zone past noon today. 60-year-old Almendras Haji Kusain and his 2 sons, Omar, 31, and Salahuddin, 25, were escorted by authorities this afternoon when they were seen on a street just within the area where intense fighting is taking place for days. Now, they were brought to a police unit and faced interrogation. Speaking to the media shortly after going through a police questioning, Salahuddin says they are among hundreds of civilians still trapped inside the war zone. They initially hesitated moving to a safer area because he was concerned for the welfare of his mentally challenged brother. When they eventually tried to flee, Maute militants supposedly prevented them from leaving.
Mainit na yung laban, saka baka acid daw kami, pwede kami pukutan ng ulo. Ay doon kami na trap kasi baka inisip din nila na baka pwedeng acid kami ng mga sundalo, pero hindi naman ganun. Pupukutan nila kami ng ulo. Ay doon kami natakot.
Several other people, including women and children, are also taken to police custody for varying reasons. About 6 Maranao women who are tagging along through children were questioned earlier today while they live near a military camp. They were questioned supposedly for loitering. Now, a public utility jeepney loaded with appliances and household belongings was also flagged at a checkpoint. Passengers say they are moving out of Marawi and were merely transporting their properties. But they still had to undergo a couple of hours of questioning before they were allowed to pass through. Now, except for the bomb runs and airstrikes around midday, the government offensive has notably slowed down. There are still sporadic gunfire and rumble of explosions that can be heard from the battle zone, but lesser compared to the past days. Now, it remains unclear if the end is near for this crisis or just a temporary lull before fierce fighting resumes in the coming days, Pia.
Well, David, now tell us about these Maute images that CNN Philippines exclusively got from sources there.
Well, CNN Philippines, as you mentioned, obtained exclusive photographs from a Maute group member's cell phone camera recovered by government troops. Now, these series of photos gives us a glimpse on Maute operations inside the war zone. It is still unclear when these photos were actually taken, but they somehow show Maute members huddled inside one of the homes brandishing their high-powered firearms. Another photo shows a Maute member preparing what appears to be Molotov cocktail, or commonly known as fuel bombs. Now, our sources also shared these series of photos showing the so-called rat holes where militants tear down walls in houses and buildings so they can easily move from one place to the other. Now, here's Western Mindanao Command Chief Lieutenant General Carlito Galvez explaining earlier this week how militants make use of these rat holes.
They said that merong underground tunnels between 2 buildings. So yun ang nahihirapan kami because they can run across the different buildings using the tinatawag nating rat hole. Meaning yung binubutasan nila yung mga buildings, nakakatakbo sila. Pumasok sila sa isang area, makita mo lalabas sila sa kabilang area. That's the difficulty that we had because the terrain is there.
These rat holes and underground passageways, including the use of elevated structures to position snipers, are just among many challenges facing troops on the front line as they advance towards the areas where militants are holding out to this time, Pia.
David Santos reporting from Iligan. More than 3 weeks into the Marawi crisis, and the military admits it is a challenge to fight terrorists hiding in mosques. But the military says they will preserve places of worship in this offensive. Ina Andolong has that story.
No, mosques will not be targeted by the military. The AFP made this clarification after officials in Marawi said on Tuesday that Muslim places of worship may not be spared from government offensives.
Habang tumatagal, itong mosque ay nawawalan ng bisa in terms of kanyang sacredness. So, this can be a target.
Knowing well that mosques are sacred, terrorists in Marawi have been using them to hide, store their weapons, and as sniper nests. AFP spokesman Restituto Padilla stresses the military will not stoop down to the level of terrorists who are desecrating places of worship.
We have not bombed and will not bomb mosques in Marawi. The Armed Forces leadership is firm in its commitment to use other options that would flush out this Maute Daesh-inspired group.
The use of mosques is among enemy tactics that are giving troops a difficult time. That, the use of human shields, and well-built structures which can stand strong offensives. With the June 12 deadline to liberate the city from terrorists now passed, the AFP says no new deadlines will be set. Padilla says they'd rather focus on operations which they believe are getting positive results, more areas where troops can freely access without fear of enemy fire. That even as the numbers they've been reporting show otherwise. Last week they said Maute members are still in 3 barangays. Now the numbers up to 4.
Whatever feedback we're getting from our folks on the ground, I guess, are much more accurate.
Instead of disputing each other, the AFP is calling for unity, especially with ISIS telling supporters to launch more attacks in the country. For Padilla, even the issue of whether or not top security officials should have left for Russia knowing about the threat to Marawi is something people should just move on from. He and the presidential spokesman insist they didn't need to be in the country since competent ground commanders were around.
Our sovereignty is being confronted, and I believe it's time to set aside petty politics and things that separate us.
It's a call for unity against bigger and possibly even more serious threats. Ina Andolong, CNN Philippines.